I used to believe danger announced itself, that real fear came with sirens or shouting, not with a soft tick of the kitchen clock after midnight. My life felt ordinary then, wrapped in routines of packed lunches, bedtime stories, and the quiet comfort of believing my husband would always protect us. Ethan worked long hours and came home exhausted, distant, but I told myself that love matured into silence. Our daughter Lily slept down the hall, 7 years old, trusting the world completely. I trusted it too, or I thought I did. That belief would shatter before dawn that night. The evening started peacefully, the kind that lulls you into complacency. Lily insisted on one extra chapter, her finger tracing pictures while I pretended not to yawn. Ethan barely looked up from his phone, murmuring goodnight without meeting my eyes. I noticed the distance, the way responsibility slid off him lately, but I pushed the thought away. After Lily fell asleep, I locked the doors, checked the windows, and crawled into bed. Safety felt procedural, something you checked off, not something you questioned. I didn't know how fragile that feeling truly was then, or how quickly it could vanish forever. I awoke to a sound that didn't belong. A soft scrape followed by a pause, like someone listening. At first I blamed the house, the way it settled at night, but my body reacted before my mind caught up. My heart raced, ears straining, skin prickling with instinctive dread. I held my breath and listened again, counting seconds between noises. Somewhere downstairs, something shifted, deliberate and wrong. Fear crept in quietly, blooming in my chest. I thought of Lily sleeping, unaware, and forced myself to move. Every instinct screamed to protect her at any cost, no matter what happened next. I nudged Ethan, whispering his name, my voice shaking despite my effort. He groaned, annoyed, and rolled away. But another sound cut through his irritation. This time he heard it, and I saw fear flash across his face. "Someone's in the house," I whispered, panic tightening my throat. He sat up, eyes wide, listening, calculating. For a moment, I believed he would rise, take charge, be the man I needed. That belief felt solid, desperate, and necessary in that second. I clung to it like a life raft in darkness, while danger moved closer downstairs silently, without mercy or warning. Ethan stood abruptly, moving toward the bedroom door, then froze as another noise echoed. His breathing turned shallow, his hands trembling, and I realized something was wrong. "Take Lily and hide," he said, voice cracking, already backing away. I stared at him, confused, waiting for him to grab something, anything, to defend us. Instead, he reached for his keys, eyes darting wildly. In that instant, trust cracked like thin glass. I felt the shift. The moment fear outweighed love for him. My chest burned with disbelief and rising terror as reality settled hard and unforgiving inside me completely at last. Everything happened too fast after that, yet every detail remained sharp. Ethan rushed past me, yanked open the front door, and bolted into the night. Cold air flooded the hallway as he slammed it shut behind him. I heard the lock click, deliberate and final, sealing me inside. For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't understand. Then Lily cried out from her room. An instinct took over. I ran to her, terror sharpening every sense I had. Somewhere nearby, a stranger moved through our home. I grabbed Lily, whispering reassurance. I barely felt myself while fear roared loudly. Lily clung to me, shaking, asking what was wrong, and I lied through clenched teeth. I told her everything was okay, that Mommy had it handled, while my heart hammered painfully. I ushered her into the bathroom, the only room without windows, and locked the door. My hands fumbled, sweat slicking my palms as I searched for my phone. Each sound outside felt closer, heavier, intentional. I pressed Lily behind me, becoming a shield without armor. I realized then how alone we truly were. The house seemed to hold its breath around us, waiting for something terrible to happen next. As I dialed emergency services, my hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I whispered our address, tears slipping silently as I listened for footsteps. Lily's arms tightened around my waist, her small body rigid with fear. I counted her breaths, forcing my own too slow, modeling calm. I didn't feel time stretched unbearably, each second loud in my head. Somewhere a floorboard creaked, and Lily whimpered. I prayed he would leave, that violence would pass us by. My mind screamed at Ethan's absence, betrayal burning. I had never felt so exposed before in my entire life anywhere. Eventually, distant sirens pierced the night, and relief crashed through me painfully. I didn't move until officers knocked, announcing themselves clearly and calmly. They searched the house while I held Lily, her face buried in my shoulder. The intruder was gone, leaving chaos and violation behind. As adrenaline drained away, shock settled in its place. I realized my husband hadn't returned, hadn't called, hadn't checked. That truth landed harder than the fear ever had. Officers spoke gently, but their words blurred together. I nodded mechanically, answering questions, still listening for him. He never came back that night. Not once ever. Later, after the house fell silent again, I sat awake holding Lily until dawn. She eventually slept, exhausted, trusting me to keep watch. I stared at the door Ethan fled through, replaying his choice over and over. Something fundamental had broken. Something that could not be repaired. Love didn't abandon you in danger. Character revealed itself under pressure. That night changed everything, even before I admitted it to myself. I understood then our marriage was already over. What remained was survival, truth, and protecting my child. The consequences would unfold, but the line was drawn. That realization steadied me finally. When the police finally left, the house felt contaminated by fear and silence. I checked every window again, even the ones they'd already secured, unable to trust my own memory. Lily slept fitfully on the couch beside me, her small hand clenched in my shirt like an anchor. I stayed awake, flinching at every creak, my mind replaying Ethan running out the door. The betrayal sat heavier than terror because danger had passed, but his choice remained. Morning light didn't bring relief. It only exposed how unsafe everything suddenly felt. Officers called to follow up, neighbors whispered sympathy, and Lily refused to let go of my hand. I moved through the house like a stranger, noticing scuff marks, a displaced chair. Signs that someone had been inside our lives. Each detail tightened my chest. I kept checking my phone, half expecting Ethan to apologize, explain, or pretend nothing happened. Ethan finally called late that afternoon, his voice thin and defensive. He said he panicked, that fear took over, that he thought leaving would somehow help. I listened silently, my body cold with clarity. He never asked how Lily was, never asked if we were hurt. When I pointed that out, he went quiet, then irritated, accusing me of overreacting. That was when something inside me hardened permanently. That night, Lily had nightmares, screaming that someone was coming back. I held her until my arms ached, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. She asked why Daddy left, and my throat closed. I told her he was scared because the truth felt too heavy for 7 years old. But inside, anger surged. Fear didn't excuse abandonment. Love didn't run. I began to understand that my job was not preserving a marriage, but protecting a child. Ethan came home the next day like nothing had happened, stepping carefully as if the house might accuse him. He brought flowers, apologies wrapped in excuses, and tried to hug Lily. She pulled away instinctively, and I saw the damage clearly for the first time. I told him to leave. Not forever, not yet, but immediately. He argued, minimized, claimed I was emotional. I stayed calm because fear had burned itself out, leaving resolve in its place. After he left again, I sat on the floor and let myself shake. The delayed reaction hit hard, sobs tearing out of me without warning. Lily watched, confused and frightened, and I pulled myself together for her sake. I realized trauma wasn't just the intruder, but the moment my partner chose himself over us. That understanding reframed everything. I started documenting the incident, writing details down, knowing I'd need them later. Even if I didn't know why yet, friends urged counseling, patience, forgiveness. They didn't hear Lily cry at night or feel my pulse spike when doors creaked. Ethan kept texting apologies mixed with frustration, insisting he loved us while refusing to accept responsibility. I noticed how quickly his concern shifted to inconvenience, money, image. The man I married revealed himself in layers, and none were comforting. I stopped responding emotionally, choosing observation instead. Distance gave me clarity I'd never had before. Lily began drawing pictures of me holding her hand. No father anywhere in the frame. She started asking if we could move somewhere safer, somewhere quieter. Her trust in me deepened, but her trust in the world had cracked. I reassured her constantly, turning routines into rituals of safety. Locks became bedtime checks. Lights stayed on longer. I adapted quickly, because mothers do, but each adaptation carried grief for the family I thought we had. The house never felt the same, but neither did I. Fear sharpened my instincts instead of paralyzing me. I began planning without announcing it, researching options, quietly preparing for independence. Ethan sensed the shift and accused me of pulling away. He was right. I no longer needed reassurance from someone who proved unreliable when it mattered most. Survival rewired me. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was deciding. Late one evening, after Lily fell asleep, I stood in the doorway and realized I wasn't waiting for Ethan anymore. I was waiting for myself to fully accept the truth. The intruder had exposed more than a security failure. He exposed a character flaw I could never ignore again. Love without safety wasn't love. Partnership without protection was a liability. That night, I committed to choosing us, even if it meant walking away from everything familiar. Sleep came in fragments, but my mind stayed alert, cataloging lessons learned the hard way. I replayed the moment Ethan locked the door behind himself, understanding it wasn't impulse, but instinct. Instinct reveals truth. I promised myself Lily would grow up seeing courage modeled, not excuses rationalized. The fear that once consumed me transformed into purpose. Whatever came next, I would meet it prepared, informed, and unwilling to be abandoned again. The police report arrived by email, clinical and detached, documenting terror in neutral language. Reading it made my hands tremble, but it also validated my memory. This had happened. I hadn't exaggerated. I hadn't imagined the danger or the abandonment. I saved copies, backed them up, and filed them carefully. Documentation felt like armor. I didn't know what battle lay ahead, but I knew I would not enter it unprotected or unprepared. Lily asked one morning if Daddy would ever do that again. I told her no, not to us, because I meant it. I was building a world where safety was intentional, not assumed. The question settled heavily, confirming my direction. Trust, once broken at that scale, doesn't regenerate quietly. It demands change. As I packed small things away and reorganized our days, I understood this wasn't just recovery. It was the beginning of separation, clarity forming where Danielle once lived. I felt fear still, but it no longer controlled my choices or defined my future. That power belonged to me now, and I intended to keep it, without apology or regret, ever again, truly. I didn't sleep much after that week, not because the house was loud, but because my thoughts were, every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's back as he ran, the lock clicking, Lily's frightened face. I replayed conversations, rewrote endings, and wondered how long I'd been lying to myself. The fear lingered, but underneath it grew a sharper emotion, one that demanded honesty. I began to notice patterns I'd ignored, moments when Ethan chose comfort over courage. Those memories stacked quietly, impossible to dismiss anymore. They changed how I saw everything. Even the past felt different now, entirely. I confided in my sister Mara over coffee, my voice steady while my hands shook. She listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from concern to anger. When I finished, she said quietly that leaving was abandonment, not panic. Hearing someone else's name, it cracked something open inside me. Mara reminded me that love doesn't vanish under pressure, it reveals itself. She asked what I wanted Lily to remember about strength and safety. The question followed me home, heavy and unavoidable. I knew the answer even before I admitted it aloud. It terrified me, but it also clarified everything, completely. Finally, Lily's behavior changed in small, heartbreaking ways I couldn't ignore anymore. She asked to sleep with the light on and flinched at sudden noises. At school, her teacher mentioned she was quieter, more withdrawn. Each detail felt like an accusation against the man who should have protected her. I reassured Lily constantly, explaining safety without feeding her fear. But inside, rage simmered alongside guilt for trusting Ethan so completely. I promised myself her world would not be built on excuses. She deserved consistency, courage, and truth modeled daily. That realization anchored every decision I made afterward. For her? For me, Ethan grew frustrated as my tone shifted from pleading to factual. He accused me of punishing him, of being dramatic, of holding a mistake hostage. I stopped arguing feelings and started stating boundaries clearly. I told him trust requires safety, and safety requires reliability. He didn't like that language because it left no room for excuses. Our conversations became transactional, stripped of affection and nostalgia. I noticed how quickly he centered himself, even an apology. That awareness hurt, but it also freed me from confusion. I no longer wondered if I was imagining things. I wasn't. I never had been. I met with a therapist recommended by Mara, unsure what to expect. She listened as I recounted the night, the flight, the lock. When I finished, she said something that stayed with me. Trauma isn't only what happens, it's who fails you when it does. The words settled deep, validating everything I'd been feeling. She helped me separate fear from decision, reaction from intention. We talked about modeling safety, not sacrifice. For Lily, leaving wasn't failure. She said it was alignment. I left that session lighter, clearer, resolute. For the first time, my choice felt grounded, unshakable, necessary, real, earned. I began preparing quietly, gathering documents, saving money, making plans. Each small action restored a piece of control I'd lost. I stopped explaining myself to Ethan beyond what was necessary. He noticed the shift and accused me of shutting down. I told him I was standing up, not shutting down. That distinction mattered because it defined my direction forward. Lily and I created routines that emphasized predictability and calm. Morning walks, evening stories, consistent reassurance became anchors. Slowly, her shoulders relaxed, and so did mine. Healing wasn't linear, but it was happening. I trusted the process and myself. Finally, Ethan suggested counseling together, but only after sensing consequences. It felt reactive, not reflective, and that mattered to me. I told him I needed space to decide without pressure. He argued that space was abandonment, twisting language ironically. I pointed out the irony calmly, refusing to engage emotionally. This boundary angered him more than shouting ever could. I saw clearly how control mattered more to him than repair. That realization sealed something final inside me. I stopped negotiating my safety for his comfort. Peace required distance, and I accepted that. Acceptance felt like grief, but also relief. Simultaneously. Decisive. True. I told Lily we might live in a new place someday. She asked if it would be safer, and I said yes. She smiled with relief that broke my heart. Children understand safety intuitively, even when adults deny it. I reassured her that none of this was her fault. That promise extended to myself, quietly and deliberately. I began imagining a future defined by steadiness, not tension. The idea felt foreign, but deeply necessary. I allowed myself to want more than survival. That shift changed everything about my posture in life. Hope returned slowly, cautiously, but sincerely. Enough real hours, the house still held echoes, but they no longer ruled me. I replaced locks, routines, and assumptions with intention. Every step forward felt earned through fear and clarity. I stopped asking why Ethan failed and started asking what I needed. The answer was simple but not easy. Consistency, courage, honesty. I modeled those traits daily, especially when it felt exhausting. Lily mirrored that steadiness, and her laughter returned gradually. That sound reminded me why leaving fear unchallenged costs more. I wasn't breaking a family, I was protecting one. That truth settled deeply, unmovable. Nothing Ethan said could change it now. Looking back, the intruder was only the catalyst, not the cause. The real fracture existed long before fear tested it. I had mistaken absence for peace, avoidance for stability. That illusion dissolved the moment protection mattered most. I don't regret seeing the truth, even though it hurt deeply. Truth, once revealed, becomes responsibility. I chose to carry it forward with intention and care. My marriage changed, but my integrity strengthened. Lily watched me choose courage over comfort. That example mattered more than preserving appearances. I don't know exactly what comes next, but I know what I will never accept again. The confrontation didn't happen in a dramatic explosion the way people imagine these things do. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, quiet and contained, which somehow made it more devastating. Ethan sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same place we once planned vacations and birthdays. Lily was at school, deliberately so. I needed this conversation to be clean, undiluted by her presence. My hands were steady as I spoke, which surprised even me. Fear had burned off. What remained was resolve, heavy and immovable. I told him I had spoken to a lawyer, that I was pursuing separation, and that custody arrangements would prioritize Lily's safety. His face hardened instantly, disbelief flashing before anger took over. He accused me of betrayal, of using one mistake to destroy our family. I listened without interrupting, noting how quickly he reframed himself as the victim. When he finally stopped, I said quietly, "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, and choices have consequences." The silence after that felt final. He argued that fear makes people irrational, that anyone could have reacted the same way. I shook my head, slowly, deliberately. "I was afraid to," I said, and I stayed. The words landed heavily between us. He had no response to that. His shoulders slumped, and for a moment I saw shame flicker across his face, but shame without accountability changes nothing. I wasn't there to punish him. I was there to protect my child and myself from a future where abandonment was always a possibility. Ethan tried a different angle then. Softer, pleading. He promised therapy, change, effort. He said he would never leave us again. I believed he meant it in that moment, but intention after the fact doesn't erase instinct under pressure. I told him that trust isn't rebuilt through promises made when consequences arrive. It's built through actions taken before fear decides for you. He cried then, quietly, and I felt sorrow, but not doubt. Some lines, once crossed, redraw the entire map of a relationship permanently. When he realized I wasn't backing down, anger returned sharper than before. He accused me of poisoning Lily against him, of exaggerating trauma, of being dramatic. That accusation ignited something cold inside me. I told him Lily's fear wasn't planted, it was earned. I described her nightmares, her clinging, her drawings without him. He looked away, jaw tight, unable to deny what he didn't want to face. The truth sat between us like an uninvited witness neither of us could remove. After he left that day, slamming the door harder than necessary, I locked it behind him with intention. My knees buckled once I was alone, not from regret but release. The decision had been made out loud. There was no undoing it now. I cried briefly, then stood up, wiped my face, and continued folding laundry. Life doesn't pause for clarity. It moves forward, whether you're ready or not. I chose to move with it instead of being dragged behind fear and false hope. The weeks that followed were administrative and exhausting. Mediation appointments, legal paperwork, custody discussions. Ethan oscillated between cooperation and hostility, depending on the day. I stayed consistent. Predictability is grounding when everything else feels unstable. Lily noticed the change immediately. She asked fewer questions, slept more soundly, laughed more freely. Children thrive in environments where adults are honest, even when honesty is painful. I watched her slowly reclaim her sense of safety, and every step forward reaffirmed my choice. Ethan demanded unsupervised time with Lily almost immediately. I refused, calmly, citing professional recommendations and her therapist's guidance. He accused me of cruelty again. I reminded him that trust is built, not demanded. I wasn't denying him a relationship with his daughter. I was ensuring it developed safely, responsibly. The difference mattered, even if he refused to see it. Protecting a child often looks harsh to adults unwilling to confront their own failures. I accepted that discomfort as necessary. At night, when the house was quiet, I allowed myself to grieve fully. Not just the marriage, but the illusion that love alone could guarantee safety. I grieved the version of myself who believed endurance equaled loyalty. That woman did the best she could with the information she had. I didn't shame her. I thanked her and let her go. Growth sometimes requires shedding identities that no longer serve you. The fear that once consumed me had transformed into vigilance and wisdom. That transformation wasn't gentle, but it was honest. Friends had opinions, as they always do. Some urged reconciliation, others praised my strength. I listened selectively. No one lives inside your consequences but you. What mattered was Lily's calm, her steady breathing at night, her trust in my presence. I rebuilt our routines deliberately, locks checked together, emergency plans practiced gently. Confidence modeled, not fear. I wanted her to grow up knowing safety is proactive, not assumed. That lesson would protect her long after this chapter faded into memory. The custody agreement finalized on a rainy afternoon. Fitting somehow, when I signed my name, my hand didn't shake. Ethan sat across from me, distant, subdued. I wondered if he understood what he had lost, or if he still believed I had taken it from him unfairly. It didn't matter. Understanding isn't required for consequences to exist. Responsibility doesn't wait for emotional readiness. I walked out of that office lighter than I had in months, rain cooling my face like a baptism into a new life. Driving home, I realized I no longer replayed the night of the intruder constantly. The memory was still there, but it no longer ruled me. Trauma loses power when met with action. I had chosen safety, truth, and courage over comfort and denial. The fear that once paralyzed me had become a guide, sharpening instincts instead of dulling them. I trusted myself fully now, and that trust felt unshakable. That evening, Lily and I cooked dinner together, music playing softly. She danced barefoot in the kitchen, carefree, whole. I watched her and felt something close to peace settle in my chest. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it would be honest. And honesty, I had learned, is far safer than the illusion of security built on someone else's promises. I had faced the worst night of my life and emerged clearer, stronger, and unwilling to ever abandon myself or my child again. I didn't wake up one day feeling healed. Healing arrived quietly, disguised as routine. Months passed with small victories stacking gently on top of each other. I packed lunches, walked Lily to school, and learned how to breathe without bracing for impact. The house felt like ours again, not a crime scene or a memory trap. I stopped jumping at every noise and started trusting mornings. Peace didn't erase the past. It gave me space to live beyond it. That difference mattered more than I ever expected it would. It changed how I measured safety, strength, and love forever afterward. Lily blossomed in ways that made my chest ache with gratitude. Her laughter returned fully, no longer cautious or interrupted by fear. She slept through the night, stopped asking if doors were locked, and began inviting friends over again. I watched her reclaim childhood, and it reaffirmed every difficult decision I'd made. Children don't need perfect parents. They need present, reliable ones. I had become that, not through comfort, but through courage. Seeing her safe was the clearest proof that leaving was right, and I doubted it again, not once. Ethan faded into a managed presence, structured and limited by boundaries. Visits were supervised at first, then cautiously expanded as Lily felt ready. I watched carefully, not with bitterness, but with awareness earned through pain. He tried to be better, and maybe he was, but trust doesn't regenerate on demand. I stopped hoping he'd become someone else and accepted who he was. Acceptance wasn't forgiveness, it was clarity. Clarity freed me from resentment and anchored me in reality. I no longer argued with the past or bargained with truth. I lived forward, deliberately, teaching Lily what boundaries look like daily. I rebuilt my sense of self slowly, intentionally, without apology. Therapy helped me untangle guilt from responsibility and fear from intuition. I learned that love doesn't demand silence, endurance, or it demands honesty, protection, and mutual courage when things go wrong. I stopped shrinking myself to preserve peace that was never real. Confidence returned quietly, expressed through decisions instead of declarations. I trusted my instincts completely now, and they rarely failed me. The woman I became survived fear and refused to normalize abandonment. That refusal reshaped my life more powerfully than love ever had before. I understood it fully. 1 year after the intruder, I changed the locks again symbolically. It wasn't fear-driven this time, but intentional closure. I stood in the doorway with Lily beside me, sunlight spilling in. This house held our scars, but it also held our strength. I taught Lily how to trust herself, how to ask for help, how to leave unsafe situations. Those lessons mattered more than any family image I once defended. I no longer measured success by endurance, but by well-being. That shift changed everything and ensured Lily would never question my presence. When fear appears, I stay, always without hesitation. People sometimes ask if I regret leaving, if I miss him. I tell them the truth without embellishment or bitterness. I miss who I thought he was, not who he proved to be. Regret doesn't live where safety thrives. I gained something far more valuable than companionship. I gained self-trust, peace, and a future not dependent on someone else's courage. That trade was worth every tear. I no longer romanticize sacrifice that demands silence or excuses abandonment. Love should add safety, not remove it. And I finally understand that in my bones now. Without question or doubt ever again, truly. The night of the intruder will always exist in my memory. But it no longer defines my identity or my future. It revealed truth, and truth demanded action. I answered that demand fully, imperfectly, and bravely. I taught my daughter what staying means when it matters. I stayed present, stayed aware, stayed committed. That lesson will outlive this story. Years from now, when Lily faces fear, she will remember this version of me. A mother who stayed, chose courage, and refused to normalize abandonment. That legacy matters more than any marriage ever could, and I carry it proudly forward always. This is not a story about an intruder alone. It's about revelation, choice, and the cost of ignoring instincts. I chose myself and my child when it mattered most. I didn't wait for permission to protect us. Fear tested everything, and courage answered. I will never apologize for choosing safety over familiarity. Our life now is quieter, steadier, and honest. That honesty is the foundation Lily will grow from. I survived the night, but more importantly, I changed what came after. And because of that, we are safe together and unafraid. That is the ending we earned and deserved fully.